We got the New York Mets top prospect update here on the call-up arm, Aram Jack McMullen. Jack, this is a good system, a system that you'll probably get familiar with at the big league level. Several of these players next year when you're calling games, because a couple guys that are quite close to the big leagues and guy that you saw throw, right? You got a Nolan McLean start at the big league level.
No, I didn't get a Nolan McLean.
You got Sproat.
I got Sproat, and then I got Tong's debut as well, which was
so that's not bad.
electric
That's
in a
pretty
certain
good.
sense. Yeah. So no McLean. They adjusted McLean so he would throw that Thursday at Wrigley before they got to Miami to end the regular season. But I got Sproat and I got Tong. But there are some other guys like spring training. I see these guys in spring training all the time. So like a Nick Morabito I saw and I really liked. So this is a fun system, man. Before we get into the Mets, can I throw you a bone that I'm picking right now?
Yeah.
A couple days ago, Bleacher Report tweeted this out. Dodgers top prospect Hyun-Suk Jang is 6'4", 200 pounds. Brain blown emoji, fire emoji. The 21-year-old was projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the KBO before pursuing the MLB. Strong arm emoji, 100 emoji. Hyun-Suk Jang is not a top 5 or maybe 10 prospect for the Dodgers.
He's not.
6'4", 200 is not mind-blowing and fire. It's pretty normal. And the MLB is also a tough one. I only bring that one up because I saw them tweet today the top 7 landing spots for Japanese Babe Ruth, Munetaka Murakami. So we already have Japanese Babe Ruth, and it's Shohei Ohtani, because the whole thing about Babe Ruth was he was one of the best pitchers and he was the best hitter of all time. Munetaka Murakami also has plenty of holes that you can poke in the offensive approach. So
that's coming, by the way. We're going to do the Japanese breakdown soon.
Yeah. I just really wanted to highlight before we got into the Mets, because Murakami might be a Met. We'll see. I just wanted to highlight, like, if you're going to go get some stuff, I would stay away from the clickbait tweet type things from that account that for some reason is kicking it into hyperdrive right now.
Well, yeah, I've noticed them getting into baseball. I think everyone wants a little piece of it. I love it. That part gets me excited. People are investing in baseball. Love that. And the fact that prospect intrigue is enough to where somebody was told at Bleacher Report to fire off a tweet about Hyun-Suk Jang is great as well. But it is ridiculous. I think they saw a Japanese player dominate World Series on the mound. Let's tweet about another Dodgers Japanese player. This will get engagement.
Well, and then how about the Korean pitcher that's 6'4", 200 pounds? That's amazing.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing too. It's like it's a little different, but it makes it fun. I'm here for it. Although they did get dunked on quite a bit there. But Murakami being Babe Ruth is very funny when you literally have the Japanese Babe Ruth. But we are here to talk Mets prospects, and we're going to go names to watch. And it's funny because I would love for them to start, like, just wait for Bleacher Report to talk about Nick Morabito, man.
Mm-hmm.
This second rounder just turned in a 31.2 feet per second runtime brain blow emoji, which he did. That's the fastest in the fall league, but we'll get to him in a moment. Zach Thornton is the first name to watch. Jack, this guy is just your bread and butter right here. I think you'll the more you get to watch this guy, I think the more you'll enjoy. Unfortunately, season cut short due to an oblique issue, I believe. But look across the board in this system. Everybody shoved. Everybody shoved. It was insane. Like, from top to bottom, you did not really have a pitcher that was healthy not throw well. And there were so many guys in the 2024 class, 2023 class that just took leaps. Thornton was a 5th rounder in 2023. Fastball's in the low 90s, but gets plus vert. And then he just has a good feel for an assortment of secondaries. A 1.98 ERA and 72 2/3 innings between high A and double A. The pitchability lefties, I always want to see how they transition to double A. And that's usually a bit of a hurdle. And it wasn't much for him because I think of the characteristics he gets above average carry. And then that extension, I think, helps as well. Slider is his best pitch. I think he could be that number 5 starter, innings eater, but at worst, I mean, you got a depth arm here in Zach Thornton.
Cool.
The one other thing I'll mention is, like, this system had a lot more depth before. Of course, they traded a lot of those arms, those emergent guys, because I think there's a lot of confidence that they can just replenish it, with what Stearns is able to do, with what this infrastructure is. And I think that's another example. Yeah. In terms of adding to, like, it's one of the best top 10s, and then it kind of drops off outside of like the 12, 13 range. A guy that could make that leap theoretically is Eli Serrano. And Serrano, I was hoping it would be this year, right? 4th round pick in 2024 at NC State. Never really put up big numbers, but he's a 6'6" outfielder that, has posted above average contact rates and, has flashed EVs. But the problem is he just has not really ever turned that into production, even dating back to NC State. That's why he was, a 4th round pick. But he's a draft eligible sophomore. The Mets kind of knew this was going to be a process. Wasn't a bad year. It was 690 OPS at high A. But he's the guy that if he can figure out how to control those levers and tap into a little bit more power, like he's controlling his levers enough to make contact. There's more in there. It may never come, but it's an interesting project in Toronto to kind of hope for as you go into next year.
So I am curious. You say it wasn't like a bad year with the 690 OPS, but he hit 222. It's not like he was hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Now Brooklyn is a tough place to hit it. I'm with you if he was 20 years old, but he's 22.
Yeah.
That was the average age of a hitter in high A this year. So he's playing at a level that is average for his age, and he hit 222 with an OPS under 700.
It's not great. The crazy part is, it was a 47% hard hit rate, which is great. It was EV90 at 105.5. You think, oh, the contact rates must be bad. No, not really. 76%. Oh, he must be putting the ball on the ground egregiously. 41%. We might have our next Hendrik Pinango. But
cool.
No, I think if he can find just a little bit more consistency in terms of doing damage in the air, I just think overall his ability to hit spin, it's interesting though. Like the foundation is there for him to be decent, but it was not the most encouraging year, I would say.
Gotcha.
It was an encouraging year for Dylan Ross, who's had a really interesting path, and we thought we might even see him make his big league debut in that final series in Miami, as he was kind of brought up to be that last man in case they needed him out of the bullpen. It's a 13th round pick in 2022, but he didn't make his pro debut until 2024 because he transferred from community college, junior college, I believe. And then he goes to Georgia, makes like 2 appearances for Georgia, and then gets hurt. Needs to undergo Tommy John surgery. And then still gets drafted, goes, then needs UCL revision surgery. So we didn't really see him throw professionally until the end of 2024. Burst onto the scene, though, in 2025, coming from high A to AAA, 2.17 ERA, 54 innings, 80 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Fastball is in the upper 90s, the shapes, whatever. It's all about the splitter here with Ross. It is disgusting. Opponents hit below 100 against it. He's going to get protected in Rule 5 anyway. He was going to need to be anyway, so they added him to the 40. But that splitter is a 70 grade pitch. And then even if the fastball isn't, great shape wise, if you've got, it's like the Sasaki thing, right? If you got upper 90s with a disgusting splitter, you're going to do pretty well in inning spurts, but he's got to cut down on the walk rate.
Yeah. It was 5.5 walks per 9. Opponents in total hit $154 against him. So splitter numbers are really good, but it's not like the fastball numbers were egregious. Also kept the ball in the ballpark, only allowed 4 homers in 2025. Him having the MLB next to his name, though, is like a teensy tiny bit misleading because he was the break glass in case of emergency. Everybody sucks or is hurt in their bullpen for the final month of the season. So he was almost like speed run in a way that didn't make much sense, but it was a really, really good year. So could he just spend the entire year in AAA? Absolutely, if they pay some relievers.
Also, a funny comment because we're live right now doing this. So reminder, if you're listening on audio, subscribe to our YouTube. We're going to try to mix in some more live stuff here and there. Jared brings up a great comment from the mailbag episode that we did that you called me a nerd for answering the IVB question, but then you brought up tilt, which is even nerdier.
I didn't call you a nerd. I called you a dork. And he said that it was the dorkiest thing that you could possibly bring up in tilt. Jared, it was in jest. I hope everybody understands that. At this point, like, it's always in jest. If I really had a problem with Aram, I'd probably just talk shit behind his back.
Well, you do that too. Truth in jest is what my mom always says. Yovani Rodriguez, catcher, $2.85 million payday. A lot of people were really excited about him. The catcher thing is always tough with me too, because like you hear so much hype around so many of these catchers that are IFA guys, get a lot of money. It's like, one, I don't know what the bat's gonna look like. 2, I don't know if they're going to stick back there. I think he's a guy that you look at and you say, okay, he can stick back there. Like there's some good tools to be a big league defensive catcher. And then he took major steps forward this year, albeit in the second taste of the DSL. So it's like, okay, well, it's your second year of seeing 55% fastballs at 90 miles per hour. That said, He's a catcher. Offensive barrier is lower when he's got the defensive skills that he has. And, I think it makes him still a name to watch as a big ticket guy with good tools, but still underlying contact rate, not great. Just keeps him out of the top 15.
Love a repeat DSL masher. That's the good stuff. It
Nothing
almost like, I feel like it makes evaluation just cloudier. Where it's like, oh, this guy was awesome.
It's even more difficult. It really is. Jonathan Pintaro is an interesting player, fun path as well. And this, they're going to keep doing this. It's like the Brewers, right? You're getting a very similar concept here, where they're going to find arms out of nowhere. And Pintaro, when undrafted out of Division II Shorter University, I know this is where Jack looks up Shorter University and tries to find other players that came out of there. Good luck. And then he pitched in the Pioneer League for like a couple years before garnering the attention of the Mets, and they fast-tracked him. First pro year, he flew through up to the I think from all the way up to Double A, and then this past year started in Double, got up to Triple. They had him as a starter initially, kind of transitioned him into a relief role. I think it makes more sense as a relief arm here. He's got the four-seamer in the mid-90s, a sinker in the mid-90s, and a cutter in the low 90s. It's that hard and harder kind of approach there that I think can work and as like a multi-inning middle relief guy. But struck out 29% of batters, just another guy. It's tough. Command is a work in progress. So you're going to need to see that command come along a little bit more. But he looks like he could be a up and down guy as soon as next year. And all you want in Major League Baseball is optionable relievers. He got up last year for 2/3 of an inning. And again, I think he's going to be another guy that can plug in for them. And if it clicks enough, can be, a middle inning, guy.
Shorter University has given us Bob Long, who is 1 for 4 in his Major League career. I'm also scrolling on the Wikipedia to notable alumni right now. And I see literally nobody I know. Jamie Barton is apparently an opera singer. They have Martin Scott, businessman, educator, and politician. They have Marilyn Lloyd, who's a Tennessee businesswoman and politician. That's what I've got.
So Jonathan Pintaro, if he's a middle reliever for 5 years, he might be the crown jewel Shorter University.
If he throws 5 more innings, he skyrockets on that notable alumni list.
I don't know. The educator sounds tough to beat.
Yeah.
Ryan Lambert, fun arm, 8th rounder in 2024. He was at Northern Iowa Area Community College. Then he went to Missouri State. Then he went to Oklahoma. It's a 70 heater. Like, he's going to be a big league relief arm. He could be a leverage arm. 1.62 ERA in 50 innings. Here's the problem. It's one of those guys that we were talking about the Vert conversation. Like, he is so perfectly behind the baseball that I don't think he has anything else that he throws that well off of it. It's a slider that he's mixed in a little bit. I think he should just go split and see what happens. Just stay behind the ball and go split fastball and four-seamer. But it's a 97 mile per hour fastball with plus carry from a short arm delivery. The numbers on that fastball were bonkers. No one touched it. He could go flip the glove up and throw fastballs and I think be a middle reliever. But if he's going to be a 7th inning guy, 8th inning guy, it's got to find that secondary. The slider's okay. That's where I think you go for that split. And if he finds that, it's another relief arm that could be, available for them as soon as next year.
North Iowa Area Community College, not terrible. 2 other notable baseball players to come out of there. Ball Bunyan, you remember Bryce Ball? 1-for-1 swap with Jock Peterson at the 21 or 2 deadline. He went to North Iowa Area Community College. And then Brandon Williamson, before he got to TCU, went to North Iowa Area Community
College.
Yeah.
Got some guys.
That counts.
Last guy, another 2024 late round pick, RJ Gordon, 13th rounder in 2024. He's just a polished guy. I think that's kind of your innings eater type. 128 and 2/3 innings between high A and double A, pitched to a 3.36 ERA. Struck out 27% of batters, though. It's only 92, 94 on the heater. But I think for him, he masks the heater, right? So he's a guy that's going to get away with maybe not having the best fastball in the world because he's going to land the secondaries for a strike at such a high clip. That's exactly what he did this past year. 70% strike rate between the slider and the curveball. And then he even mixes in a splitter that, he's going to command at a pretty decent clip. So I don't think the stuff's good enough to be more than a 5 starter. And right now I still project him kind of as a 6 starter, but still a very valuable guy to have. And with a little bit more, I think he could be that innings eating number 5 type of arm.
He threw a ton of innings too, 95 innings in his draft year at Oregon in 24. Understandably so, Mets shut him down. And he threw 129 innings this year. So he was already ready to take on this massive workload, which is really
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
the Braves must be so jealous.
Oh,
This is they probably are kicking themselves for not getting RJ Gordon in the 12th round.
he's just our type.
Yeah. We get to number 15, who is my type. This is my new archetype of player. This is what I want on my team, on my 40 man. I want the catcher outfielder. Make this a thing. And I say it somewhat facetiously. I don't even know if I really want it. But if I back into it, I am here for it. Chris Suero. I saw some people in our replies of the Mets system as we put it out saying like, "Oh, I'd have Suero higher." All right, I get excited about him. I get it. I still can't fully fathom the archetype though, because I think he's a good enough catcher to get by there and be fringy, maybe average. He's a plus runner, no doubt about it. He's a plus runner, and he's an air pull guy. Like he's going to pull the ball in the air pretty consistently and with above average EVs. So it's below average hit, fine plate discipline, like average, above average power plus speed, and like average defense, but average defense catcher and left and first. That's like I would love that player on my bench. I would, especially with the fact that he can come off the bench as a valuable runner, a guy that could always run into a homer, and a guy that if you're just late in the game and making all these different changes, you can pinch hit for your catcher or pinch run for your catcher and know, like, okay, well, we burned both guys, but we have Suero still who can get back there as well. I just think it gives you a lot of malleability roster-wise and lineup-wise.
He's splitting it up a good deal. He's out in Arizona right now. He's made 7 starts behind the dish. He's made 2 starts at first, and he's made 4 starts in left. And oh, by the way, he's killing the baseball. 14 appearances or 14 games. He's got 5 homers already, and he's walked 7 times. He's 7 for 7 in the stolen base department. I didn't get to see Scottsdale. Did you get to see them when you were out there?
I saw one game of Suero, and he torched 2 balls. So
got you. Cool.
Yeah, he the bat speed's legit. He's gonna hit the ball in the air consistently. And I think what's interesting with him is that I think like the outfield is actually a part of his game because he's so fast and the arm is gonna play. So I think he can develop there. So I'm glad he's getting the reps out there. And he's developed to a point now where I think he's just gonna be a mistake hitter. And I think that's gonna limit him from being like an everyday guy. But if you could be part-time catcher, part-time outfielder, off the bench, kind of maybe short platoon type of guy, that gives you value. He's 35 bases this year. Like there's a unique skill set that I think is absolutely worth the 40-man spot at the very least.
Cool.
Will Watson checks in at 14. Another arm from that 2024 class, 7th rounder. It's a unique delivery that you'd think would make the fastball better, but it doesn't. Like the fastball seems very hittable. It was not great swing and miss numbers there. He releases from like a 5-foot release. He was initially a two-way guy at California Lutheran, and then transferred to USC and kind of really focused full time on the mound there. But I think it's another just kind of high floor arm. I'd like to see the command be a little bit better. But I do like the fact that he can spin a slider really well. The fastball is still going to sit in the mid 90s, and the changeup looks like it could be a solid third pitch. So if you've got average heater plus slider, above average changeup, that could be a guy that mixes and matches enough for this. And I think I have it wrong because he was a 2023. Thank you for the catch there. 2023 Mariners draftee. And they love their athletic pitchers as well that work down the mound. But, I think the fastball getting hit too hard is a little bit of a concern. And then him spraying the ball a little bit more than you'd expect. It's a long arm action, even though he works down. And so I think it's hard for him to repeat. I think ultimately that's going to restrict him into being more of a swing man type, middle relief type.
Happy birthday, Will Watson, by the way, turns 23 years old today, which is really cool. USC is the sleeping giant of college baseball. This just kind of got me on that run. USC is one of the most storied college baseball programs that we have in the country. And Will Watson, I don't know, he's one of the very few that we've seen come out of USC in recent memory. Lars Nootbaar is obviously probably the premier big leaguer that has come out of USC in recent years. But this is the same school that gave us Tom Seaver, Randy Johnson, Mark McGuire. This was a murderer's row of college baseball talent, and it's just kind of gone away. People have problems with Texas not being back on the football side. I've got a problem with USC not being back
There
on the
really
big
is
ball.
no excuse. UCLA's back, and there was a time it's like, how are both of them not good? Football is a whole another conversation too. They have no excuse to not be good at football. But
USC has no excuse. UCLA has an excuse because they play like an hour away from campus. But like
yeah,
USC football, USC basketball, USC baseball should never be in like the collective spot that
you're
they
in
are right now.
California, dude. Like even I look at some of these small schools here in Florida that are like churning out more professional talent. You've got JUCOs recently that I feel like have been churning out a little bit more talent of late. It just can't happen. I agree.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Michigan has been churning out more talent. How is that happening? But
That's
I
the
feel like
best
they
player
have.
to come out of USC since 2018 in Newt Bar is probably Kyle Hurt. Like Blake Sable came out of there as well. I mean, dude, like you got to scroll. Garrett Stubbs. Yeah, yeah. Dude, I'm going back. Brad Boxberger
Oh, well, that's a good one.
in 2009. The last guy that has come out of USC that has given us 10 career WAR. As I scroll, Mark Pryor in 2001.
Dude,
That's the last guy.
dude, that's what and now you've got like Michigan for producing more big league or professional talent right now. And that here's another first rounder out of Michigan, Mitch Voit checks in at 13. I'll disclaimer here. This is kind of like a placeholder ranking for Voit. I haven't seen a ton of him. His pro debut, like, it was short and it seemed like he was tired, to be honest, because the guy was pitching as well for the Wolverines. Um, I don't know if they're going to play him at second full time. Like maybe he can potentially move around and maybe he's able to play some third. Like we'll see. But he's a plus runner. He's got above average plate discipline, and I see the potential for average hitting power. Maybe there's a little bit more. He's a difficult player for me to totally figure out just yet. And so I'm just excited to see more of him professionally. So it was difficult for me to kind of figure out exactly where he lines up. But I think not pitching anymore will be big for him. I don't think the hit tool is going to be above average like some I've kind of pegged it as. I think it's going to be average. I think it's going to, if anything, where he can make that gain is in the power department, no longer pitching, put on a little bit more strength, although he is pretty physical. I like how simple the operation is. It reminds me a little bit of Cam Smith. And I think defensively, if he can give you a little bit more value there, there's a lot more to like. But the plus wheels absolutely help. So again, admittedly, just need to see more of him. I will see a lot more of him this spring training and coming into it. But right now, kind of placeholder ranking here at 13, where I could see him popping up to the 45 future value pretty easily if he has a nice start.
Where would the additional defensive value come? Would it come from being better at second, or would it come from possibly being able to play third?
I think
Like,
both. I think
okay.
if he looks really solid at second and the arm strength is obviously there, like he pitched, like that means he can play shift over to third and probably play a solid third and maybe even shortstop in a pinch. Like that would make me feel a lot better just about the overall outlook. So I think it's just kind of how the footwork is out there. Obviously the arm strength's there. And just the internal clock, all those little things that I just was not able to get a ton on. But I think, we have some people in the comments saying, seen him make, a bunch of stellar plays as well. Like he's clearly an athlete. So I think this is a fun player to be able to try to develop. And I'm excited to see what that looks like in the first full pro season. Nick Morabito checks in at number 12, and he has developed pretty nicely here. I think 2024 really was his breakout, but he followed it up with a good year in 2025. I think after you break out in like a lower levels and then you get up to double A, it's always that big test. Like, can you match it? Or at least can you just show that, you did make a major improvement, not just get better to the point where you could feast on, lower level competition. I think with Morabito, we saw that he just tangibly has gotten better and turned in a solid year this year at double A. And I think the year that he turned in this year is more, like indicative of what he ultimately can be, which is, I think, a fourth outfielder on a really, really good team and potentially a second division regular on on a team that, just doesn't have a guy up the middle because he's going to play above average defense in center field. He's an elite runner. He's a 70 runner. He registered at 31.2 feet per second sprint speed in the AFL already, which just edges out Enrique Bradfield Jr., just to put it in perspective. He obviously home to first is not going to be as quick because Bradfield's halfway out of the box by the time he's swinging.
Right.
Morabito has above average plate discipline. He's tapped into a little bit more power. I think the hit tool is average. So it is an uphill battle to be that like everyday center fielder for, first division team. Cause I think the hit tool would need to be closer to above average, but with the skill set that he has, also the arm strength was more substantial than I thought. he's absolutely a guy that can be a high-end fourth outfielder or, second division regular up the middle. And that's why I think there's no doubt that he's going to be protected in the Rule 5 draft.
So I was going to ask you that. It's interesting because he could obviously fit in right away in some sort of protected role, like not to the level of Nasim Nunez, because he could probably handle the stick a little bit better than Nasim could in his rookie year. But,
Yeah.
You would think like, okay, this guy really hasn't played AAA baseball. Do you run the risk of losing him and somebody stashing him for a full year? I think no. I think you have to protect him and you have to let him incubate in AAA while taking up a 40-man spot. He's a freak athlete. You mentioned it. He's one of the fastest guys in minor league baseball. You can see kind of the twitchiness defensively too, and you can see it in the batter's box as well. Like this guy's just a really, really good athlete that happened to pick playing outfield in professional baseball.
Yeah, and I think that's going to bode well for him. And, I think the routes could be a little bit better, and that's why I put a 55 on it, but he's got time to get to that 60. I think it'll be just at the big league level. But just building on that, the floor is just so high. And how many bags did he have this past year?
Nick Morabito.
I can give you the fall league bags. He's 14
Nick,
for 17 in 15 games in the fall league.
14 for 17 in 25. He had 49 bags in 118 games, but he had 59 in 2024.
And in the AFL right now, he's hitting 377 with a 964 OPS. He's an upper levels hitter at this point. And I think that's what the fall league is validating. When you see guys do that,
yeah,
he's just an upper level hitter. And that I'm stashing that guy in the Rule 5. I think there's a lot of teams that could take him and just ease him in. I know it's tough because he didn't have great numbers against lefties. Like I was hoping he'd be like a short platoon guy, but even then, who really cares? If you're not giving him a ton of ABs out of the gate, I still think you can justify the roster spot as late game defensive replacement. To your point, it's not going to be the level of Nasim Nunez stash. Like if you're bringing him off the bench late in a game to hit, I think you're going to get a little bit of a better at bat. Although I did like the changes Nas made. He looked pretty good at the end of the year. But that was after all this time. I think he's going to give you a little bit of a better at bat. I think he's going to, again, make a little bit more of an immediate impact in the box if you have to throw him in there. But it is a bit of a leap. I do think it is. But he's got the skills to be able to do it.
Do you think they sent him to Arizona trying to get closure on whether they protect him or not?
Yes,
for me, I just don't know if it was that much of like I felt like it's a slam dunk that you protect him even before the fall league.
It is funny because now if you don't protect him, you just gave him an audition for 29 other teams, and he's
amazing.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. But I think that the devil's advocate is okay. Well, then if they know he's a slam dunk, must protect, but they don't have the 40 spot that they can justify at this point because they signed some guys or whatever. You can trade that guy now because teams might not even want to roll dice in a Rule 5 and say, no, we want him. And that's something that you could see as well. But I think they protect him. I think he's going to be on that roster. And I think you look at the Tyrone Taylor role, the Harrison Bader role in the past. Like, why can't that be something that Morabito does?
Gotcha.
But they could also protect him and trade him.
Gotcha.
Number 11, guy that is not going to be Rule 5 eligible anytime soon, Elian Pena. This is, we talked about on the show. I don't know if I've ever seen like such a tale of, I wouldn't say it's a tale of two halves, but I've never seen such a rapid and incredible turnaround to a player's season and also just to the start of a professional career. He started it was 0 for 26? 0 for 26?
Something like that.
Through his first 9 games. And then subsequently hit 348, 468, 623 with more walks than strikeouts and 9 homers. Like, holy crap. Like, it just, I don't know what happened in the first 9 games, but it clearly was put behind him very quickly. This was a big ticket IFA guy. He's the most expensive, I think, IFA guy in the history of the Mets. And that doesn't always mean anything. And a lot of times it means nothing. But with the people at the helm of the Mets scouting department now and everything, I think it means a little bit more. But even then, the smartest minds will whiff on it's impossible to scout these players. I think they were validated in this season. No matter what happens, and that's usually the thing I look at is like you have guys that immediately just flop and their swing looks terrible and the tools aren't there. And you're like, what were they looking at? Who were they listening to? You have guys that perform well in the DSL, perform well in low A, and then they just hit a wall. And at that point, it's just like that we took a good shot. It didn't totally work out. I think that you can already look at the Pena situation and say, your scouting department is validated for that $5 million because you can see the skill set. The swing is pretty. The approach is good. The ability to pull the ball in the air is advanced. He's an above average runner. And, the numbers were fantastic down the stretch.
And you learned a lot about who this guy is mentally. He made his professional debut in the DSL on June 2nd. His first hit in the DSL came on June 14th. This guy had to wait 12 days for his first professional hit. That is as much adversity as any $5 million IFA guy is ever going to face. Hey, you have to make a good first impression. Your first impression, second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, eighth, your ninth impression was bad. All of them bad. What does your 10th impression look like? And that is when things turned around to the point where he had a 950 OPS this year. So I feel like all you need to know about a 17-year-old kid's mental makeup here.
I think it's a great point because that could have piled up on him quick.
Oh, it could have been lost here 9 days in.
A lot of eyeballs on him. I think he had 2 3-homer games? That's insane. 2-3 homer games. He did a lot of impressive things. So I'm very excited to see him stateside. That'll be one of the guys that I'll be most excited to go catch at the complex. Defense, I don't have a ton on. I thought he moves pretty well, so I'm just excited to see more from that. It seemed like the arm strength could be enough there too. So looking forward to more Elian Pena. He's a guy that can make a huge leap this coming year.
Real quick, he played 55 games. In game number 54, that was 4 for 5 with 3 homers, one of his 2 3-homer days. This guy, after 53 games, his OPS was sitting at 893. And after 54 games, it was sitting at 963. In the second to last game that he played this season, he raised his OPS by 70 points.
That is actually outrageous. That's why the DSL is so funny. What I also like is 4 of his 9 homers came against lefties. And he had a 1204 OPS against lefties. So 900 against righties too, though. So he's just really good year all around. We're going to get to number 10, Jonathan Santucci, here in a moment. Before that, our first break. I don't have the whoosh ready. Do you have the whoosh?
Yes. Just in the nick of time, baby.
That was good. Jonathan Santucci, what a year. Another player, 2024 class, second round. He had first round helium. Another player that was a two-way talent early on. He could hit some bombs from the left side, and that athleticism was evident on the mound. But he took a huge leap forward this year. And I think the fastball got better. The command got better. The slider got better. And the fact that he even flashed a third pitch was significantly better because before it was a changeup that he barely threw. That wasn't very good. And now I think he flashed a curveball that I think can be a solid third offering. But the big change for him was cutting the walk rate in college for Santucci from 14% to I think 8.5% this past year. I mean, that's incredible. Now, this is a control versus command thing, but step one, find some control. And he did that. He found control, and that was important. Now, the next step is command, right? The slider, he lands for a strike at about a 69% clip. The fastball, he sprays still, and that holds him back. And also, it's still 89% of the pitches he throws are fastball slider. He's going to need to find a third pitch, and he's going to need the command to get better to progress to that, to stick as a starter. But what I like about Santucci is the floor is now just a good left-handed reliever, especially with the control being good enough now. But now you're looking at a guy that with the curveball coming along, with the command taking a step forward, with the fastball improving, and the high-quality slider, he could be a solid number 4 starter, maybe even grow into a middle rotation arm with the way lefties are performing. But great year, elevated his stock big time, and he got better as the year progressed. Like, he dominated in Double-A.
Yeah, I was just impressed. Like, did we see him throw in spring breakout? I feel like that's when we saw him throw in person. I saw him live. It could have also just been on a backfield during spring training, but I was just impressed by how physically filled out this guy was. And that's not a bad thing. Filled out has this negative connotation because you feel like there's minimal room to grow. What I'm talking about is this guy is already a very physical left-handed pitcher, and physicality is going to work in his favor. The lower half is really strong. You feel like you can continue to add 1, 2, 3 ticks on the heater if you are as strong as that. There are just so many things that can continue to improve for this guy. And when he finds consistency, that's the name of the game, obviously. And
Yeah.
that's what can make him a starting pitcher. It feels like all the grunt work and all of the stuff tick up elements that need to go into, like, your weight room and your diet, your nutrition, like, they're already taken care of. So
Yep.
now it's just a matter of finding consistency.
And that curveball, I think, is the big pitch to look at. It's overtaking the changeup, which is great. And, I think that'll be the next step. But I also just think it's the fastball command, because you can't have like 18% of your fastballs being non-competitive, which I think is an important measure, because, when you get to the big leagues, I always talk about this. You're ahead 0-1. You make a good pitch 0-1, right? You locate a slider. Now you have the opportunity to put the hitter on their heels even more so, right? And you go to the fastball, and the intended target was maybe up and in, or just on the inner half, but you just missed the target by 5 feet or whatever, 2 feet. And it's an easy take. Now you just squandered huge probability in the count, right? Instead of potentially going 0-2, you go 1-1, and you didn't even make the hitter think, right? You just gifted probability back to the hitter. And now you just kind of showed him too that you may not be able to command the fastball. And now he's sitting back on that slider potentially. Like, those are all the little things that I think can come back and affect guys when they get to the higher levels more. So Santucci was able to overcome that because he has a great feel to locate. He's clearly a supinator to locate that slider, but he's got to find a way to locate that fastball a little bit better too, and he'll be in a good spot. But one way or another, he's going to be a big league left-hander, and I think that's what really was solidified with his 2025 campaign.
Cool.
Another guy that did the same thing with his campaign is Jett Williams. And I oscillate. I was really close to the 50 future value. I feel like I should put him at 50 future value. I don't know. I've gone back and forth, and I just gave up. And I said, we just got to publish this thing and go. Wenninger had a great year. I mean, it's funny. I wanted to say, like, he was as good as anybody in the system. He had Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong.
Right.
He finished the year really well, because any numbers that you look at for Jett Williams, it doesn't include his 2 postseason starts where he combined for 11 innings, 2 runs, 3 walks, 20 Ks. So if you add those into the equation, on the year, his ERA drops to 2.82, and he threw 146 and 2/3 innings. That splitter is disgusting. It is fall out of the sky, like almost. I'm trying to think of the best way. It just runs out of gas. I guess the best way I can describe it. The slider is not great, and I think that's an interesting wrinkle here. It's like, what's going to be the third pitch? And the fastball is above average. So you have above average fastball, you have plus splitter that could be even better than that. And then he's still trying to find that third pitch, but the command is above average. So I'm interested in that as like fastball changeup guy with the okay third pitch. Can that work enough with good command to eat innings in the back of a rotation? Or is there a lot of pressure on finding a little bit more with that slider?
I'd be curious. I'm looking at, just kind of what he's done over the course of his career, and that goes back to college too, at Murray State, and then even at U of I for 2 years as well. His draft year at Illinois, the gopher ball kind of got him, like 10 homers and 80 innings. And then I look at his first 2 full years in pro ball. Obviously, he missed that time in 23. In 24, he allowed 11 homers, but then that ticked up to 13 homers. Now, he's throwing a lot of innings, so it's okay. But like the gopher ball feels like the one thing that could get him occasionally, but I feel like that's what just happens when, the splitter is not dialed. And obviously it's dialed more often than it's not.
Yeah, and I think because like the only other way to get whiff, I think, is going to be that fastball at the top, right? Because that slider is not really a swing and miss pitch. So if you don't,
and then it's conducive to getting clipped. Yeah,
you're going to get clipped a little bit. What's funny is, I think it was that's like he had a sinker that he kind of went to as well, and that pitch got bludgeoned. So I think that was another pitch that he was trying to look for to kind of give a different angle, since he didn't really have that third pitch. So it's interesting, but I did see some better sliders down the stretch, and he was clearly working on it pretty hard, because I think he knows that that's like the last piece there, and he was commanding it a lot better. So if that's the case, like he's regardless, I think he's a high probability back into the rotation starter and innings eater, clearly with the workload, and he got a lot of ground balls down the stretch as well. So just a great depth arm to have, but I think a guy that I think could end up ascending to like a number 4 type of starter.
Love it. Shambana represent, baby.
Jacob Reimer, the fact that he's 8th in the system is kind of crazy because he did nothing but elevate his stock. And I love Reimer. He's going to still be on the top 100 list. So spoiler alert, you got eight Mets in the top 100 update. Reimer kind of did, like, he seems to be a guy that really enjoys second half and adjusted and sprinted through the finish line, but it was a pretty well-rounded year for him. You also had in the postseason, he hit another homer and had like 5 more hits if you add that side of things into it as well. I think the big thing for him is the defense. Like, how's that going to come along at third, or does he slide over to first? But you've got, I think, average hit tool plus plate discipline and above average power. You add all that together, you're going to have a pretty good hitter here. And that's exactly what we got. He elevates pretty well. We've talked a lot about the mechanical adjustments he made to get him to the position that he was in last year in finishing and kind of breaking out. And then just followed it up this year as a 21-year-old to do what he did in Double-A, I think was just further solidifies that he made these impressive adjustments that have him tracking as, a big league bat one way or another.
So when Jackson Holliday was making his way, and you have no idea where I'm going with this,
Zero.
When Jackson Holliday was making his way through the minor leagues, what did people want to talk about? On field, obviously, they wanted to talk about the limited chase, and they wanted to talk about the damage that he was doing and just how advanced the approach was for a kid that young. They also wanted to talk about his face. He looks 10 years old. Jacob Reimer is the youngest looking person that's going to be on the top 100 prospect. He might be the youngest looking kid in minor league baseball. He is, like, we've got to think of a good nickname surrounding him with like the baby face type nature, because he's still like, he looks 12 to be honest with you. And then all of a sudden he's a big guy.
Yeah, and I think he is going to grow into just a little bit more physicality, even though he's 6'2", like 210. I think he is going to mature a little bit more physically, and if there's a bit more power in there too, could start to push closer to plus. To your point, so I like him a lot. I like the bat a lot, but it would help his case so much if he could stick at third. But you mentioned the baby face. I think he can mature a little bit more physically, and if he's plus power, then you really got a fun bat here.
No offense to him, like, he looks like a kid that can't grow facial hair. It's like, if you gave me, right? It's like, you got to give me 5 months to get like peach fuzz going on.
Hey, he's only 21. He's got some time. Got some time. Another guy who, he looks young too, and it is young, is Ryan Clifford. And Clifford was amazing. I think Ryan Clifford had one of the most underrated seasons in minor leagues this year. Like, he kind of slipped a little bit in 2024 in terms of my intrigue. He was overstriding. I didn't really like the path swing wise because of the overstriding. He was struggling against secondaries, but those are all kind of a result of the lower half. And he cleaned all that up this year. And I think he really found the moves that work for him. 21 years old for the majority of the season. And he absolutely destroyed balls and really didn't slow down. And, I really should put first base / outfield here, because he is showing that he can actually fill in the outfield. And I think that is important, because it just takes a little bit of pressure off of the bat, and it just gives him a little bit more wiggle room. The approach got better. The elevation, the ability to hit the ball in the air got better. The EVs got better. He ran a 90th percentile of 108.5 miles per hour. He had a hard hit rate of 57%. As far as I know, I think that's the highest figure of the entire system, minor league wise. He is a monster power bat here that I do think you probably are going to platoon from lefties, but he's a monster power bat that improves in every single department as a 21-year-old and reached AAA and continued to rake in AAA, and has shown that he can play some outfield a little bit too with a plus arm. I think he's going to mash for them, and he's going to be 22 for the majority of this upcoming season.
Trivia time. He was 6th in minor league baseball this year with 29 homers. Who were the 5 that hit 30 or more?
Oh gosh. 5 that hit 30 or more this year.
5 minor leaguers hit 30 homers. Ryan Clifford hit 29. He was just ahead of Nico Cavadas and Tim Elko.
Oh God. Did Esmeralyn Valdez get to 30?
He did not.
Who got to 30?
He had 26.
Are these prospects?
2 of them are.
2 of them are?
Yeah.
Can you get position?
Yeah. So one would give it away.
Okay.
But the other is an outfielder. Center fielder hit 35.
Oh, we got Ryan Ward.
Ryan Ward hit 36. Yep. He was the minor league leader. Center fielder hit 35.
Spencer Jones.
Sort of, kind of an outfielder. For the most part, a DH hit 32.
Laz Montes,
Lazaro Montes. And then you've got Bobby Seymour, Bob Seymour, who
who
hit
just got
30. And
DFA'd.
then, yep. And then Jose Rojas hit 32 and
God,
drove
you
in
could
105.
give me 1,000 guesses there.
Yeah.
That's
No,
fun.
you weren't gonna get Jose Rojas, but
But I think
shout out
Clifford,
Greg and Jared that both got Ryan Ward.
Clifford and Laz are the guys though that I think like they're the youngest that, and I know it's even different. Laz even younger, but young, challenged at the levels. I think Clifford to do it in triple. I think to finish the year the way he did in triple was incredibly impressive. I'm just excited to see how much more could be in there. And the fact that he got the contact rate to where it was at, where it's like a respectable figure. I think there's huge power potential here. So I'm excited about that. And I think he fits into the equation as soon as this coming season. And, I think the fact that he can play first and outfield can kind of help keep him in the lineup in the bulk platoon.
It is cool because I feel like when that Verlander deal went down and it was Gilbert and Clifford, everybody was expecting Gilbert to be the guy, and Gilbert was the guy for like 6 months before that. But now Gilbert, is kind of finding his footing in San Francisco, but Clifford has just taken over that premier prospect and that trade type, moniker.
100%. And I think I would have had Melton ahead of all of them. And I think Clifford's the best prospect of that group now and just the best young player. Number 6, Brandon Sproat. Don't have to spend too much time here because we've talked about him a lot and people can look at his baseball savant even a little bit too. Interesting path for him. And here's my theory on it. He really broke out as he started throwing more strikes because that was always the big key for him. It was never about the stuff. And we saw him dominate through high A, double A. The AAA ball really affected him. And I think you saw the vert get knocked down. You saw the sweep on his breaking ball adjust a little bit. The feel for the changeup was affected. And it took him about the back half of 24 and the beginning of 25 to fully figure that out. Then he did. We saw a better version, but I still think it was a little bit subdued from what, I thought at one point could be, one of the more exciting pitching prospects in baseball. But now he's throwing more strikes. It's another control versus command guy. I think the control has gotten really good. I think the command is still not great. And I think the lack of execution is why you're going to see the strikeout rate typically hover beneath what the stuff would imply. That said, I think he can get some weak contact, and he's got a good pitch mix across the board. He's a velo-dependent guy, too. So seeing that fastball tick back up in the second half was big because it's such a flat, kind of straight fastball that he sprays that I think it's going to play closer to average, even though it's in the upper 90s. But I think it's even more important for him to sit at 97. Because at 95, it may not play very well at all. That splinker-like changeup came back. I think that's a plus pitch. Yeah. The sweeper really emerged. I think that's an above-average pitch. The curveball looks like an average pitch. So he's got, I think, 3 solid offerings. And then, he'll mix in a 4th and 5th that are all right. I don't think he's going to execute enough to be a middle rotation arm. I think he's a solid 4 starter.
So options B and C after the fastball, which is option A, were the sweeper and the changeup in his brief major league sample. The sweeper, he'll throw to both. The changeup, that splinker type changeup you're talking about, is his weapon of choice against lefties. And, both of them performed very well in a limited sample. Sweeper opponents were 1 for 13 against it. Changeup opponents were 2 for 11. So that's 3 for 24 against his 2 primary off-speed pitches off of the fastball. Do you feel like he can be a 4-seamer guy? Because he was throwing both. The sinker was like his primary choice, but he would go to the 4-seamer occasionally. It was 4-seamer at the top, but it was sinker at the knees. He was rolling ground balls at a 50% clip. Granted, brief major league sample. But like, if you can be a ground ball machine with that sweeper and with that changeup too, I could see him leaning into that.
Yeah, and I think that's what he should. And then you have the 4-seamer to buzz at the top to kind of change the eye level. I like
occasionally
working out the bottom of the zone and then having that fastball to surprise at the top because the 4-seamer is about to tick harder. And so I think that even though the shape kind of stinks, it's like the Sandy thing. When Sandy introducing the 4-seamer, it was good for him because hitters were so worn out at the bottom of the zone that the velocity alone was still enough to just get by them and rush them and change the eye level. And I think with Sproat's shape being so close to the dead zone, him ticking back up to 97 was big. And then I think him being able to work the bottom of the zone with these other offerings helps a lot. and then he can buzz the eyes, or the upper part of the zone with that four seamer. And that's what he did. And that's why he actually got some good in zone whiff numbers finally when he went to it. So I think it has to be a pitch that he doesn't go to too often. And I do think at his best, he's a guy that's getting ground balls. I really do think it's that more than a strikeout guy, even though the stuff may imply more. Cool. Number 5 is Jett Williams, who apparently Mets fans are saying this is too low. It's interesting. It's a fun conversation because the guy ahead of him, I think they're very similar. And I think that's more what this conversation boils down to. And really, I got to adjust the run grade. It's 60 flat. I don't think it's 65. But Jett had a nice year, and it's been about staying healthy for him, I think. He's just a high floor guy because of the approach, because of the ability to pull the ball in the air, and the EVs being decent. I think it's an interesting archetype because I don't love him in center field. I don't think he sticks it short. I think he's a second baseman. So if he's a second baseman, you hope that he's above average there because that would help a lot. But he's going to have to swing it, right? And I think contact-wise, there's some zone miss. I think he hedges that with the approach, but it's a 75% contact rate, 85 or 80% in zone. And that kind of dwindled a little bit more as the year progressed. And it's, kind of a groove swing, aiming for pulling that ball in the air. If he's striking out 24, 25% of the time, like he's very patient, right? So he's going to get into a lot of deep counts. Him as a 3 true outcome type of hitter is interesting to me. And maybe the hit tool is better than that. But I think he's going to skew a little bit that way. So, okay, how do you get to 3-4 WAR? He's going to have to hit 20 homers. And I think he can. He hit 17 this year in 130 games. But he's going to have to hit 20 homers. He's going to have to walk. I think he's going to have to be a pretty good defender at second base.
So I'm trying to close my eyes and envision the comp here. I don't want to say Albies because Albies was 30 and 100, but you're kind of looking at poor man's Albies, right?
Yeah, I guess, right? He's faster, right? So you're going to get a little bit more value on the base paths. But yeah, I think it is that's what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
I think there's pressure on a 5'7" guy to slug.
Which is never a recipe for success, but Albies is clearly a 5'7" guy that can slug, that can hit 30 homers.
And Jett's built to slug.
Right. And he probably can't hit 30, but he can hit 20, to your point, which is, there's a huge difference between 20 and 30. Good news is he's got plenty of time to find his footing in AAA. He just turned 22 years old 4 days ago. So, hey, if he spends the entirety of the year in Syracuse in 26, it doesn't feel like the end of the world. Maybe to Mets fans, it feels like the end of the world because a lot of different things kind of, kickstart Mets fans into thinking that the world is ending. But I understand where they're coming from. I really don't think it's worst case scenario if he spends the entire season in Syracuse.
And it really comes out I think the defense for this player, this archetype of player is important because, that's where I think a lot of value is going to be derived from, no matter what. I think pitchers are going to attack him a little bit more, even though he's selective, right? And when you see a guy that's patient with some zone whiff, that I think you're gonna attack a little bit more, right? And especially when he's got wheels and you don't want him on base. So how does he handle being attacked a little bit more? I think he can handle it well, but I think there's pressure again to get to that 20 home run, plateau, which I think he can. And then also if you're getting above average defense at second base, of course that's going to give you a lot more, value war wise. But when I was looking at him, okay, I see average hit at best. I see average power, maybe squeezes out a little bit more because of the way he air pulls, but there's pressure on that. And I think that's what makes it interesting. And then I'll make, the Ewing case next, but I do think it's probably second base limited. That said, there's so many different ways that he can get to being a solid everyday player just because of the fact that he's going to walk, he's going to run, he's going to, hit those mistakes out of the yard at least. And he's going to, I think, play fine second base. So I'm excited to see how both Jett and Ewing kind of progress into this next year. But Ewing checks in at 4 for me because I think it's just a safer path to 3+ WAR, if that makes sense. Because with AJ Ewing, he projects as an everyday center fielder for me. I think he's going to grow into an above average defender out there. I think the routes were a little bit, but the closing speed he's faster than Jett somehow. He stole 70 bags this year. Now, I had some back and forths on X because I think a lot of people value Jett and his offensive prowess higher. But my thing is, with the player of this archetype, I think you really got to look at the defense and I think where they're going to fit in long term. And then also, okay, there's a gap between Ewing and Jett offensively at this point. Ewing's a year younger. He has room for more growth physically. Like, he can tap into more power. And it's better bat to ball wise. Now, the swing decisions are better with Jett, but that's still something that, again, can get better with Ewing. And it's not like it's bad, it's above average. And the average exit velocity from Ewing was 1.5 miles more, and the hard hit rates were identical. So Jett maxed out, right? Like, it's just, can he continue to do what he is doing at the highest level? With Ewing, it's, can he continue to do what he's doing at the highest level, but how much more is there in there? Like, he could air pull more. You can learn that. I think it's a little bit harder to learn how to improve your zone contact rate. You can get stronger. That is just something that you can physically do. And then I think the defensive part is massive, where Ewing's playing an above average center field versus maybe an average or above average second base that you're getting from Jett, because Ewing can also play an above average second base. And I think with players of this archetype, a difference of 5 to 7 homers is not as important to me as a difference of, I think maybe a full grade in defensive ability and premium position defensive ability as well. Yeah. Ewing being effective left on left really is important too, like nearly identical numbers splits wise. And I think when you have the things that Ewing is better at, I think are harder to learn. And the things that Jett is better at, I think Ewing can learn and develop. And I think that's what it boils down to as a year younger player too.
And this right here is why this is a war-based conversation. There are plenty of positions where you could make the argument that so-and-so is a better player, even though speed and defense skews the way of the other player, right? Because offense drives the bus. But second base, like, it really is about war accumulation. And second base center field is about war accumulation. And how do you accumulate war? Speed and defense. You would take Ceddanne Rafaela over a lot of players that are everyday second baseman in Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah.
And you're not saying that AJ Ewing is, a platinum glove level defender. You're just saying that, like, the war boosters skew the way of Ewing.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much saying, and this is like as simple an argument as what can be made about these two. Jett may hit 20 homers. Ewing may hit 6 over the course of a major league season. But if Ewing is worth 3.4 WAR and Jett is worth 2.9 WAR, who are you taking for the New York Mets? And it seems like with how Jett may fill out offensively and what the final product may look like, I think you could make the argument the 3.4 WAR player is more valuable. Now, if Jett was hitting 30, I understand taking the 2.9 win player that's hitting 30 homers. But if he's 2.9 and he's hitting 20, and Ewing is 3.4 and he's hitting 7, you're probably taking the WAR guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're talking about a guy here. Jett's going to get bags. Ewing could be one of the best base stealers in Major League Baseball. It's
so really Jett stole 32 bags. Ewing stole 70.
Yep. And I understand different levels, but still, Ewing, I think, is going to get those bags anywhere. Those are all the things too that I think are important. And then you get a lefty bat. I just think sprays the ball over the yard. And if he air pulls more, you have even more, I think, to be excited about. I think with Jett, it's just you need him to do everything that he does at the highest level. Whereas Ewing, you can like hope for him to progress more and develop a little bit more. And I think that's an important wrinkle in this thing. Someone did bring up a good comment in the chat about the Albies comp. The problem is Albies doesn't walk. But I think if you give up some of the plate discipline, some of the power, and turn up the plate discipline, I think it makes
there's no perfect comp for what's going on right now.
There isn't. It's a really unique player. And I think both are really good players. I think Jett's a top 100 prospect for us comfortably. But with Ewing, I just if and the big thing too, and the last thing I'll say on this is if they don't reach their offensive potential, if Jett Williams doesn't reach his offensive potential, you start to get frustrated with where he fits into the roster. If AJ Ewing doesn't completely reach his offensive potential, he still has a really good, valuable roster spot as his ability to play center field, and I think his bat to ball, and then the ability to play on the infield dirt as well.
So we talk a lot about ceilings and how ceilings matter. We talk a lot about 50th percentile outcome and how that matters. I'm actually going to push it even further down. What is the 30th percentile outcome of AJ Ewing? 30th percentile is a bench piece that is playing good defense in a couple of spots. 30th percentile outcome of Jett Williams is not a Major League Baseball player.
No, he's like an up and down guy that you keep
Right.
trying to
So
get
it's like,
shots. It's like, yeah, so like maybe it's John Birdie. Like,
there's a bunch more margin for error for Ewing than Jett
yeah.
Williams.
Yeah, and that's what it blows. And then you have physical projection as well.
Yeah.
But who knows? It'll be fun to find out. We're going to get to the top 3 in a moment here. Before that, one more quick break. I love how the whoosh is actually the Just Baseball Show whoosh. We need a call-up whoosh for those that are watching on YouTube. Jonah Tong, he's like this year's Quinn Matthews. Like, how many more times do we need to talk about Jonah Tong? Isn't it kind of cool to see a 70 and a 70 fastball, 70 changeup? We don't see that too often.
Yeah. So let me ask you, because the changeup is obviously a 70 grade pitch. The fastball, with what you saw in the big leagues, is that a 70 grade fastball?
I think it's so hard because I think it is. I just think that it was the only thing that hitters were prepared for. Like, you're facing Jonah Tong, you are not getting beat by Vert. That's it, right? Like, so even if you put a pitcher out there on the mound who has 170 grade pitch and the hitters know it's coming every single time, they're gonna hit it. And I know that he mixed in the changeup, but hitters let the changeup beat them, right? Like that was fine. So I think when it all comes together, I really do think it is a 70 grade heater. He was nowhere near big league ready. And I know that sounds crazy because of the numbers, but we were saying that from the jump. I'm like, hitters need to respect spin. And they didn't with him. And I think that the curveball will get there. But it is an interesting question. Like, is that fastball 70? Because in the minor leagues, it was the most dominant fastball. And I think that we had pretty much. It was like 480 OPS allowed. But then the big leagues, it wasn't that great. Is that, him taking advantage of lower level guys, but not really. Like, he did it in Double-A and even 2 starts in Triple-A. He bullied guys. So I really think it was teams just knowing how one-dimensional he was and how he wasn't ready, and they just were geared up for it. And he wasn't hitting his spots very well, and it just wasn't really performing for him that well.
Got you. Okay.
But it is a great question because it's like, if he's just fastball changeup, yeah, it could be a 70 pitch in terms of the shape, the characteristics, the velo. But if it's isolated or the only other pitch is a changeup, is it going to ever play like a 70? And I think that becomes a big question.
Right. And I feel like, we kind of saw how that can ebb and flow. And, I have no idea where Tong and Savage are going to stack in the top 100, but like, I feel like we saw kind of the pros and cons within Savage's month of October.
Yeah.
When Trey Savage didn't have 3 pitches going, he was beatable. When he had 3 pitches going, he was 5 2/3 no hit with 11 Ks against the Yankees, and he was 12 punch outs against the Dodgers in the World Series. You need a third to be the starting pitcher that people want you to be, that Toronto fan base wants Savage to be, that the Met fan base wants Tong to be.
Yeah, and I think that curveball is the pitch, but it's going to need to find that consistency, and I think that's the thing that holds me back just a little bit, and I think we skew a little bit lower on him just because of the fact that I still have some concern about his ability to consistently hit spots with that delivery, and then consistently do that with a breaking ball as well. That said, he's going to be a really good big league pitcher one way or another for a long time, and I'm excited to see how he can kind of build off of what was an unbelievable year from him, with one of, I think, the most dominant fastball changeup combination, we had, or 2-pitch combination period that we had in minor league baseball. But the question that you raised is the one that's going to kind of just haunt me until next year, which is just, is it going to play like a 70? Because it was a 70 in the minor leagues comfortably.
Yeah.
Number 2, one of my favorite prospects in baseball, as you know by now, Carson Benge. And, I got some questions about like how Carson Benge finished the season. And like, oh, well, did Did the numbers in AAA concern you at all? No. And not because I just want to say I'm right about Carson Benge and be dense about it, because he got hit in the hand, and I think it really jacked him up, and he tried to kind of play back through it. And you have a concrete date. Got hit in the hand, then he returns, I think like a day later, and was like 0 for like 20 something. So it clearly affected him. I mean, his hand or the wrist. But then he kind of shook it off at the end of the year, like the last few games, and had a 4-hit contest, homered in the final game, and I think had 2 homers in his last 5 games. Looked a lot better. I love Benge because the sum of his parts is just such a good player, right? Like you're going to get above average bat to ball, you're going to get above average plate discipline, you're going to get above average raw power. I think he's starting to get into in games, which we saw this year. I kept telling people that there's more power in there, especially as he stops pitching. An EV90 of 106 this year, a hard hit rate of 48%. We're seeing the power there. Oh, but he doesn't elevate enough. Give him a second. He elevated more this year. He had 15 homers, 25 doubles, 7 triples. He's an above average runner, and he's, I think, at least an average defender in center field. You move him to a corner, great. He's going to be a plus there. It's such a high floor, and it's such a good player. It's just a type of player that I gravitate towards really easily. I think, I think in a world where we do look for guys that do something like that, have an elite quality to them, I think we end up overlooking the guys that do a lot of things very well. And it's like kind of the Kyle Tucker thing. And I'm not comparing him to Kyle Tucker, but does a lot of things very well.
I've got a comp for you, and you may hate it, but try and remember how we felt about this guy before he's gotten to his current light. There's a lot of Andrew Benintendi in Carson Benge. When he won the Golden Spikes, when he was one of the top prospects in baseball as a Boston Red Sox, like people forget about Andrew Benintendi as a young kid. His age 22 season, he hit 270 with 20 homers, high efficient 20 stolen bases. He walked. Like it was just this well-rounded game that everybody liked. And people looked at Benintendi as, you're such a safe person at such a young age. Everybody wants a Benintendi in their lineup. That's how I feel like Carson Benge is. He reminds me of a young Benintendi.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's where I'll try to go back and say, okay, well, how do we compare these guys? Because maybe am I getting overzealous or whatever? And there's a lot of similarities because the contact rates are above average, the plate discipline, like that's where Benintendi was at. And the reason why I like a Benge even more is that the impact, because you look at a player of that archetype and you just don't think there'd be that much impact in there. And Benintendi was like an EV90 of 103, also was relative to the time. So it's probably closer, like I think if you compared it to now, like 104, 105. But there's a little bit more just whip and violence in there with Benge. And that's what makes me excited about him. And then you get the defensive ability in center. But there are a lot of similarities there. And a player that just is easy to gravitate towards, you just hope he doesn't, taper off that same way. But when you got 55s across the board as a left-handed hitter who also hangs in there against, I think left-handed pitching decently well, and I think there's room for more. Like he's still wiry. Like I think there's room for more strength with Benge. And I just love the whip in his swing. Like there's a similar type of violence and handsiness and whip with the barrel that you can't teach that I love about Carter Jensen. And that it always made me gravitate towards him. And I think you're seeing it big time with Benge and how he's able to generate more impact than you would expect. He was successful against pretty much all pitch types. It's everything you wanted to see this year, and I think he's the guy that could take over center field for them at some point this coming season. I really do believe that.
Cool.
Number 1, he is going to be very high on the top 100 update. And of course he is. Nolan McLean. Talk about like the 270s. How often do we get to see, like, this is like reminding me of like G-Rod. It honestly just reminds me of G-Rod, where it's like, how many pitches am I going to give an above average grade to? The fastball is the biggest correction for me. And maybe I'm overcorrecting and we'll find out. But I think it's a 70 fastball grade because you've got 2. You've got the 4-seamer and you've got the sinker. From a 5-foot release height in the mid 90s, it's a very bizarre, it gets out sideways too. Low, sideways, and the 4-seamer just seems to just surprise hitters at the top. And then the sinker really seems to surprise hitters. They're a mile per hour apart with about like 12, 13 inches of horizontal separation or vertical separation, excuse me. And then a few other extra inches of horizontal. And from looking from behind home plate, you cannot tell the difference out of the hand until it's too late. So those two fastballs, it reminds me of Michael King, where he can just go two different fastballs. Who else were we talking about that was doing that successfully at the end of the year?
Brian Wu, four-seam sinker.
Yeah, very similar too, where they can just go with the two fastballs and honestly hide some of their secondaries because they're going to go through the first time in the order with the two fastballs with the way that they can locate them. Ton of ground balls. What was it? 60% ground ball rate in the big leagues?
I think so.
But then, oh, by the way, this guy spins the baseball as well as anybody who has picked up a baseball on planet Earth right now. Like that, like there's almost, I don't know if I can't think of anybody that really recently coming up through the minor leagues, especially, is spinning the ball like him. His sweeper is the teeth on that pitch. I can't believe how hard it got hit in the big leagues. I think it's just bad luck. But the teeth on that pitch is crazy. Then you've got this two-plane sweeping curveball that averages like 3,300 RPM. That there's a scatter plot I have of every breaking ball in the league. And he is by himself in the bottom left corner, meaning it's just getting more horizontal and more vertical than any pitch. There's no one, he's just by himself on a scatter plot. And he's landing that pitch for a strike. He developed his splitter this year that is an above average pitch. His worst pitch is is his gyro slider. That was really good for him in the big leagues this year. But when you've got the 70 heater, a 60 sweeper, a 60 curveball, a 55 split, and a 50 slider, the last piece is the command, which took another step forward. If he can get to above average command, I think he's an ace. I don't think he's going to fully get there. I think it's going to be average command. And I think that's why he's going to be, a top 30 pitcher in the game and bordering on that territory.
I'm looking at just spin numbers right now. Qualified pitches. This is tough. Does McLean qualify here? No, Nolan McLean does not. But I mean, he's a spin machine. And the number of guys that like I talked to around the league that were making Nolan McLean must-watch television was unfathomable. He was the guy to watch for Major League Baseball players as soon as he debuted.
Pitchers looked at him like he's one of those where like I think the average fan appreciates him, but I think the average player like marbles on a different level. And
he was your favorite pitcher's favorite pitcher by the end of the year because he does something they could literally never do. And that's the reason why like Seth Lugo has so much love around the league.
Yeah.
People looked at Seth Lugo's curveball and said, I can't do that. So I'm enamored with watching it. People like players love watching Ohtani because they could never do it. They want to see something that they could never do. They can't even strive for. McLean plays blitzball while everybody else is playing baseball.
Yep.
And that is what makes an ace. That's what makes a top whatever prospect in baseball. Is it 10? Is it 5? Who knows? But like, I mean, this guy, there's so few holes to poke. And you mentioned the ground ball rate, 60% ground ball rate with about 10 Ks per nine, with an ERA in the low twos in 8 starts. He willed them into the conversation on the final day of the regular season. The Mets would have been out of it with a week to go if it wasn't for Nolan McLean. There were so many things that made you say, this guy has the makings of the next Matt Harvey, the next, maybe not DeGrom because DeGrom is like Hall of Famer, but the next frontline arm for the New York Mets.
And I agree. And then you look at the body and the athleticism, another former two-way guy. But I look and they're different pitchers because Schwellenbach's so command oriented. But I think about the path and how Schwellenbach, we saw the best version of Schwellenbach in the major leagues, right? Because two-way player in college, didn't throw a ton of innings, underwent Tommy John right around the same time in college, and then fast-tracked through the big or minor leagues because he was so good so quick. But then you saw the best version of him in the big leagues. It's almost identical with McLean path-wise. And I think that's why we're going to see the best of McLean at the highest level because he's still learning how to pitch, period. He just stopped hitting in 2024. He was still de-aging and hitting bombs in 2024. It's going to be the thing that people bring up in 5 years when Nolan McLean's, throwing a shutout, in the playoffs or whatever. And people will be like, by the way, he used to hit. Like, here's a video of him going deep in Double-A. It's remarkable stuff. I think he's only going to get better. And it's really, really, really unique. And the reason why I'm so high on him is if a guy like him could succeed from a 5-foot release with those two fastballs with the question of like, okay, well, where are the secondaries? They need to develop. We talked about like with Wu. Wu got more vert, but still, he has one of the best abilities to spin the baseball in pro baseball. So you have unique fastballs that he can attack you with and succeed with. And then, oh yeah, by the way, he also spins it better than everybody else as well. Between AAA and the big leagues last year, 24 starts. Opponents against his sinker and four-seamer. 178, 294, 274 slash line. It's a 568 OPS with a 65% ground ball rate. That's one of the best performing fastballs we got.
It's why we like, yeah, I mean that fastball in particular, but like the arsenal as a whole. That's why we like Yamamoto. That's why we like Sanchez, like guys that are getting punch outs and ground balls. Like that's what makes the best pitchers in baseball. So you put all this in this big soup, and like that soup is going to taste like an all-star.
Yep. Because there's so many. When he's off, he's still going to survive, and I think that's. And when he's
on, he could no hit somebody.
Yeah. I can't wait. He should be runaway rookie of the year favorite, even though it's a hitter award. He should be runner. I know you got Weatherholt. We're going to talk about all that stuff. He should.
Did he maintain rookie eligibility?
Oh, they made sure of it. I think by the skin of his teeth, he did.
They did. Okay, good.
Yeah, and they made sure of it. And it's going to be fun to watch. I think we got a lot of fun rookie of the year candidates going into next year. You can find out where he's going to be on the top 100 list next week. That's going to come out early next week. We're just putting the finishing touches on that. But as you can tell by the future value grade, he's going to be quite high there. Any final thoughts on the Mets system, which again, I think is as loaded of a top 12 really as you got. But, obviously thinned out a little bit with their trades, but that they're going to reload with arms.
Can you hear me if I whisper?
Mm-hmm.
They can trade for Derek Scoble right now.
They could.
Yeah.
They could trade for Scoble right now, and it doesn't even have to be McLean. You can make it happen.
You're supposed to whisper that.
Sorry. That'll do it for this episode. We will check in with you guys next week. We'll have a little check-in on the AFL, and then we'll have top 100 check-in as well when that is live on justbaseball.com. Look forward to going over all of that with you and answering all your questions. Reminder that when we do put out the top 100, we will give early access probably day before and to listeners and or members of our Discord. And then I'm going to spend that day answering all of their questions, but then spend all week answering questions in the Discord. Going to do a live Q&A in there as well. So if you want to talk about the top 100, if you want to hear a little bit more of the data behind some of the decisions, the thought process behind some of the decisions, I'm going to be doing that all week in the Discord, and it's the best way to support Just Baseball. We're also doing a Bowman break in there again soon, which I'm very pumped about as well. As always, thank you for listening. Look forward to talking prospects with you next week. Have a great weekend.
Scobo.